Further debate? The member for York South Weston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with pleasure I rise in the House to speak to and fully support my colleague from Toronto St. Paul's motion to place COVID-19 ban on above guidelines rent increases. I know in my riding of York South Weston that housing is in a state of crisis. The pandemic has only amplified the disparities and inequities that exist when it comes to marginalized folks. People like those essential workers and their families struggle to get by. Tenants need the protection this motion provides by providing an immediate end to allowing above guideline rent increases until at least 12 months after the official end of COVID. I know in my community, like much of the GTA, we have seen re-evictions taking place during the pandemic, leaving tenants with nowhere to go. Tenants are struggling to pay the rent because of loss of jobs. A few hours due to COVID is a common occurrence. It's a common occurrence. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government needs urgently to step in and implement legislation to give tenants the support they need during this pandemic. We know that the evictions and rent increases that are above guideline continue as the most marginalized in our society, that include seniors and people living with disabilities, and racialized people are the ones that are most impacted. I recently tabled a bill calling for housing strategies to view through the lenses of equity and calling for housing to be a human right. Unfortunately, the bill did not pass, but we now have before us another opportunity to address the disparities faced by everyday people by supporting motion 157. Mr. Speaker, housing is a human right, and everyone in this province deserves a good, stable place to call home. The instability and fears tenants face needs to stop. I have seen residents have to leave their families and neighbourhoods they grew up in because they are unable to afford the rent or purchase a home. This problem is not a new one, and the years of Liberal and Conservative governments have only made the housing crisis worse. With no housing strategy, with an eye to affordability, and with landlord-tenant board hearings, now even harder for tenants to navigate and receive a fair chance to tell their side. The deck is increasingly stacked against tenants. Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House do have a very solid housing platform and strategy so that the young people can afford a good home and protection for tenants that is fair to small landlords that my colleague from Toronto St. Paul's talked about, mom and pops that are really doing a good job. This government has a majority, and they just need the will to put tenants first and realise that making it easier for all Ontarians to have affordable housing, that it helps our economy and contributes to making Ontario a desirable place to live. I will be proudly supporting my colleague a motion to have a COVID-19 ban on above guideline rent increases, and I urge everyone to do the same, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.